Hi, it's Alaska Granny. Did you realize for your long-term food storage, you're in your emergency prepper stockpile, there are actually foods that last forever. They last for at least 30 years if they're properly stored. And food needs to be stored in a cool, dark, and dry place, in a container that keeps the air out and also can keep critters from chewing on it. What are those foods, and are they still available? With this COVID-19 coronavirus pandemic, the stay-at-home orders and food shortages, I was wondering if these foods are even still available, and if they are, what are the prices? So I actually put on my mask and ventured out to my local grocery store here in Alaska to see if I can find the forever foods and how much they actually cost. The first basic food that you should stockpile is beans. You can find them in all kinds of different varieties. You can find them at different price points, different sizes. I didn't find any of the giant bags of beans, but I found a lot of small bags, different varieties. You can see that the prices vary, and one of the strategies you can do is look for long-term food storage beans that have already been packaged to last for 30 years. I have bought cases of number 10 cans through the Mormon Church or the LDS Church. They sell them online. They're very inexpensive. They're already packaged to last for 30 years. Their food on their site is available to anyone who cares to buy it, but they are having shortages there just like everywhere else. So if you're looking for long-lasting foods, start with beans. The next food to stockpile would be rice. Rice is also a forever food. You can see I was able to find rice, and this is the price where I live in Alaska. If that's too much for your budget, you can always buy a smaller container of rice, or also look for that at the Mormon Church, the LDS online shopping. Rice and beans are great. You can store them in a 5-gallon bucket. You can put them in a Mylar bag and seal them with oxygen absorbers. If you buy them and store them in smaller amounts, you can always store them in a clean canning jar. You can just screw on the lid, or add an oxygen absorber and screw on the lid, or put on the lid and use a food saver jar attachment vacuum sealer to remove any of the excess air. All of those ways work. The more oxygen you remove, the longer your food can last. But if you can't get oxygen absorbers or you don't have a food saver, put them in the jar, put on the lid, seal them up, and they're going to last a very long time. Buy a variety of rice and beans in small packages. You can just add those bags into your 5-gallon bucket and seal up the lid. You can keep adding to it a little at a time so that you'll have food for a very long time. The next food that lasts nearly forever is vinegar. You can find white vinegar, which has all kinds of purposes for cooking and cleaning. You can also choose apple cider vinegar. Apple cider vinegar is useful in a lot of cooking, and also it has a lot of health benefits. I found that the price of vinegar has risen dramatically in my area, and this is what it costs in Alaska. The next food that's great for long-term food storage is honey. Try to find honey as close to the source as possible. Make sure when you're shopping for honey that it's 100% honey, doesn't have any additives. It's best the closer to local honey that you can find. It also should be in a glass container. If you can only find it in a plastic container, take it home, pour it into a clean jar, and tighten the lid and set it away in a cool, dark, dry place. Make sure you store it in the dark, because the light can affect the food that's in the jar. If your honey should over time seem to turn sugarized, solidified, you can place your jar into a bowl of warm water, and the warm water will help loosen it, release the sugar crystals, and your honey will flow liquidy again. Maple syrup is also a forever food. It comes one single ingredient out of a maple tree. Maple syrup has always been expensive, but it's certainly a tasty addition to all kinds of recipes, and it's going to last forever. So it might be something you want to add to your forever food stockpile. Pure vanilla extract is also a forever food. It's made from alcohol and vanilla beans. If you buy imitation, it's made from all kinds of other things. The alcohol in pure vanilla extract is what allows it to be a forever food. Make sure you keep your bottle tightly sealed. Salt is the next forever food. You can read back as far as biblical times. Salt was very important and it was used for trade. That's one reason they say people are worth their salt. Salt has been valuable. In today's world of processed food, we forget that salt is a necessary nutrient that everybody needs. But we're getting so much of it in our processed foods that we don't normally even need to add it anymore. But if you're going to be cooking your own foods, preparing foods from scratch, looking to take care of your health long term, having salt is a great addition. Salt is inexpensive, but it lasts forever. Make sure you store it in an airtight container. I had a carton of salt at my granny camp, which is my Alaska off-grid remote cabin, and over the winter time it absorbed the humidity out of the air, and when I came back in the spring it was hard as a rock and wasn't any good anymore. It's simple to pour your salt into a mason canning jar or store boxes of it into a 5-gallon bucket, and that will help it last longer. The last forever food that I like to stockpile is sugar. Sugar is like salt. You need to keep it dry. It absorbs the moisture out of the air and it can turn very hard. You can store it in a Mylar bag in a 5-gallon bucket. You can also seal it up into glass mason canning jars, but don't add oxygen absorbers to sugar or salt because they're powdery, and then there's something about the process that turns it into a rock hard solid block. So oxygen absorbers and food vacuums are great for things like rice and beans, oatmeal, and lots of other long-term food, but don't use it on your sugar or your salt. These are the prices of the forever foods. I was glad to see they're still available in my area in Alaska because a lot of foods have not been available. The shelves have been cleared and things are just different now that we're into this pandemic of coronavirus. In Alaska, we're having a second wave. They've asked us to stay home again. We're in a reset and we just don't really know what's going to happen. So it's a great time to check your food storage. Make sure you have some forever foods. You never have to worry about it. They're foods that are going to last forever. If you enjoyed my video, I hope you'll share it with someone else you think might like it. Learn more at alaskagranny.com and please subscribe to the Alaska Granny channel.